The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the circular discussion platform. At the center, a holographic display showed a small blue-green planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space, Earth. The newest member of the galactic community, and according to many present, its most troublesome. Ambassador Keithvar of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted his translucent wings and spoke with the authority that came from ruling over 40 star systems. The humans have been part of our council for barely 2 rotations, and already they're causing problems. Their military expansion, their aggressive colonization efforts, their refusal to follow established protocols. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Crystalline Collective's representative, a being of pure living mineral named Quartz 7, resonated with a sound like wind chimes. Their application to establish military bases in the Outer Rim territories is unprecedented. No new species has ever requested such extensive military presence. Vexthul, the insectoid delegate from the hive worlds, clicked his mandibles together in what passed for laughter among his kind. Perhaps it's time we reminded these mammals of their place in the galactic hierarchy. They seem to have forgotten that they're the newcomers here. The holographic display shifted, showing footage from various human colonies. Images of Marines in powered armor conducting training exercises, massive battleships under construction in orbital shipyards, and humans terraforming worlds with an efficiency that had surprised even the most advanced civilizations. What the Council saw as aggression, humans called preparation. Elder Nostram of the ancient Dominion, a species that had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years, raised one of his forearms. His voice carried the weight of eons when he spoke. I've reviewed their military doctrine extensively. These humans have a concept they call force projection, and another called rapid deployment. They believe in being ready for any threat, anywhere in their territory. Exactly the problem, Keithvar interjected. They're militarizing space at an alarming rate. Their so-called United States Marine Corps has established recruitment centers on 6 different worlds. They're teaching other species their combat techniques. The truth was more complex than the Council wanted to acknowledge. Humanity had indeed been expanding rapidly since joining the galactic community, but their motivations were rooted in hard-learned lessons from their own history. Earth had seen 2 world wars, countless smaller conflicts, and had developed a military philosophy based on being prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Colonel Sarah Martinez, the human military liaison to the Council, had tried to explain this during previous sessions. We don't prepare for war because we want it, she had said. We prepare for war so we can prevent it. Peace through strength isn't just a motto for us, it's survival. But the Council had dismissed her words as typical human aggression. They failed to understand that humanity's military buildup wasn't conquest-driven, but protection-focused. The Marines weren't training to invade other worlds. They were training to defend human colonies from the very real threats that existed in the galaxy's darker corners. Quartz 7's crystalline form pulsed with different colors as he accessed the collective's vast databases. According to our intelligence, the humans have been conducting what they call war games in the Kepler sector. Large-scale military exercises involving multiple fleets and ground forces. What the intelligence reports hadn't captured was the full context. Those war games were responses to increased pirate activity in the sector, raids by slavers from the Void Syndicate, and territorial incursions by rogue elements that the Council had been unable or unwilling to address. The Marines had been practicing rapid response scenarios to protect not just human colonies, but any peaceful settlements in the region. Elder Nostram studied the data with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. Their rapid response capabilities are impressive. Response times that exceed even our most optimized military units. Too impressive, Vexthul buzzed. No species should possess such military efficiency so soon after joining the Council. It disrupts the established balance. The established balance that Vexthul spoke of was one where older, more civilized species maintained control through diplomatic superiority and technological advantage. The idea that humans might challenge this order through sheer military effectiveness was unthinkable to many Council members. Keithvar spread his wings in a gesture of authority. I propose we implement Resolution 447, Mandatory military limitations for species with less than 5 rotations of council membership. The humans will be required to reduce their military presence by 60% and cease all expansion activities. The vote was swift and decisive. 10 of the 12 species voted in favor, with only the Terran Federation and their allies, the Free Traders Union, voting against. The resolution passed with overwhelming support. As the Council prepared to transmit their decision to Earth, none of them noticed the small monitoring device that had been recording their entire session. None of them realized that their secret deliberations were being watched by human intelligence operatives, who had learned long ago that in politics, as in war, information was the most valuable weapon. On Earth, Admiral James Harrison received the intercepted transmission in his office at Marine Corps headquarters. A veteran of the Titan Wars and the architect of humanity's rapid space expansion, he had expected something like this. The old powers never liked new competition. Harrison activated his secure communicator and contacted Colonel Martinez on the council station. "Sarah, how much time do we have before they deliver their ultimatum?" 72 hours, sir. They're planning to present it as a fait accompli, expecting us to comply without resistance. And if we refuse? Economic sanctions, trade embargoes, possibly even military intervention. They're confident we'll back down rather than face the combined might of the older civilizations. Admiral Harrison smiled grimly. The Council was about to learn something that humanity's enemies had discovered throughout history. Threatening the United States Marine Corps was a mistake that few survived. "Colonel, begin Operation Proud Ground. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the Marines." As the communication ended, Harrison looked out his window at the sprawling training facilities where thousands of Marines prepared for deployment across dozens of worlds. The Council thought they could intimidate humanity into submission through political pressure and implied threats. They were about to discover that Marines don't retreat, they advance in a different direction. The secure conference room beneath Marine Corps headquarters buzzed with activity, as holographic displays showed star maps, fleet positions, and real-time intelligence from across human space. Admiral Harrison stood at the center of it all, his weathered face reflecting decades of military service and the weight of the decision before him. "Operation Proud Ground is a go," he announced to the assembled officers. "The Council has given us 72 hours to comply with their military reduction demands. Instead, we're going to show them exactly what those forces they want us to disband are capable of." Colonel Martinez appeared via hologram from the Council station, her expression serious. "Sir, I've been monitoring Council communications. They're not taking our military capabilities seriously. Elder Nostram actually referred to us as an immature species playing with dangerous toys." General Patricia Chen, commander of the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, leaned forward in her chair. "What's our primary objective, Admiral? Are we talking about a show of force or actual combat operations?" "Both, if necessary," Harrison replied. "Intelligence indicates that the Void Syndicate has been planning a major offensive against the Kepler sector colonies. The Council knows about it, but has been unable to coordinate an effective response due to political bickering between member species. We're going to handle it ourselves." The Void Syndicate represented everything wrong with the galaxy's current power structure. A coalition of pirates, slavers, and mercenaries who operated in the spaces between official territories. They had grown bold in recent months, attacking shipping lanes and civilian settlements with increasing frequency. The Council's response had been typical: committees, subcommittees, and diplomatic protests that accomplished nothing while people died. Captain Michael Torres, one of the Marine Corps' most decorated combat veterans, studied the tactical displays. "What's our timeline, sir? If the Syndicate is planning something big, we need to hit them before they can execute." 48 hours, Harrison replied. "Colonel Martinez will present our response to the Council exactly when they expect to receive our compliance. But instead of capitulation, they'll get a live demonstration of why the Marines exist." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. While the Council expected humans to meekly accept their demands, 3 full Marine expeditionary units would launch simultaneous operations against Void Syndicate strongholds throughout the Kepler sector. The operations would be broadcast live to every Council member, showing exactly what human aggression actually accomplished. On the planet Minerva Prime, the largest human colony in the sector, Governor Elena Vasquez received the coded transmission that meant Operation Proud Ground had begun. She immediately activated the colony's defense protocols, not out of fear of the syndicate, but to protect civilians from what was about to unfold in the system. All civilian traffic is to clear the space lanes immediately, she announced over the colony's communication network. Military operations are commencing in system. This is not a drill. The response was swift and orderly. Unlike many species that panicked at the first sign of military activity, humans had learned to trust their Marines. Colony defense forces took their positions while civilian ships moved to designated safe zones, clearing the way for what was coming. In orbit around Minerva Prime, the USS Gettysburg, a massive assault carrier, disgorged its complement of Marine dropships like a metallic swarm. Each ship carried a full platoon of Marines in powered armor, their weapon systems primed and their mission clear: eliminate every syndicate presence in the system. The syndicate had established a base on Minerva Prime's third moon, using it as a staging ground for raids throughout the sector. Intelligence reports indicated over 3,000 pirates and slavers were using the facility, along with a significant fleet of raider ships. It was exactly the kind of target that the Council's diplomatic approach couldn't handle. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Kim commanded the assault force descending toward the moon's surface. A veteran of the Proxima Centauri campaign, she had seen firsthand what happened when pirates and slavers were allowed to operate without consequences. "Marines," she announced over the comm system, "you know the mission. These scum have been terrorizing innocent civilians for months while the Council debates. Today we remind the galaxy why humans don't negotiate with terrorists." The dropships hit the moon's surface like falling hammers, their armored hulls absorbing defensive fire, while Marines poured out in textbook assault formations. The syndicate fighters, accustomed to easy victories against lightly defended merchant vessels, found themselves facing an entirely different kind of opponent. Private First Class David Chen was among the first Marines to make contact with enemy forces. His powered armor absorbed hits from energy weapons that would have killed an unprotected human, while his weapon systems locked onto targets with lethal precision. "Contact front," he called out as his squad advanced through the syndicate's outer defenses. Multiple hostiles fortified positions. The battle was swift and brutal. Marines moved with a coordination that impressed even their own officers, flowing around enemy strong points like water around rocks, always finding the weakest point in any defense. Their training had prepared them for exactly this kind of urban warfare, and the syndicate's hastily constructed fortifications were no match for properly executed Marine tactics. Back on the Council station, the emergency session had been called as soon as reports of the Marine assault reached the various delegations. Ambassador Kethvar stood before the holographic displays showing the battle in real time, his translucent wings trembling with outrage. "This is exactly what we were trying to prevent," he declared. "The humans are conducting unauthorized military operations in Council space without proper approval or oversight." Colonel Martinez stood calmly at the human delegation's position, her expression neutral despite the chaos erupting around her. "Ambassador Kethvar, I believe you're mistaken. The Kepler sector contains sovereign human territory, and we are defending our citizens from terrorist attacks that the Council has been unable to address." Elder Nostram's ancient voice carried a note of grudging respect as he watched the tactical displays. "Their operational efficiency is remarkable. Look at those coordination patterns. Each unit knows exactly where every other unit is positioned. They're fighting as a single organism." What the Elder was witnessing was the result of centuries of military evolution. Human warfare had progressed from individual combat to unit tactics, to combined arms operations, and finally to the seamless integration of technology and human adaptability that made the Marines so effective. Each Marine was linked to every other Marine through quantum communication systems, creating a battlefield awareness that no other species had achieved. The syndicate base fell in less than 6 hours. Similar operations throughout the sector reported identical results: total victory with minimal Marine casualties, and the complete elimination of pirate presence in areas that had been terrorized for months. As the last syndicate ship was either captured or destroyed, Admiral Harrison prepared to address the Council directly for the first time since the crisis began. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had devolved into chaos. Representatives shouted across the chamber in a dozen different languages, while holographic displays continued to show the aftermath of Operation Proud Ground. The syndicate bases that had terrorized the Kepler sector for months were now nothing but smoking ruins, and the pirate fleets that had seemed unstoppable were either destroyed or in full retreat. Admiral Harrison's image appeared on the central hologram projector, his dress blues immaculate, and his bearing radiating the confidence of a man who had just proved his point in the most direct way possible. The chamber fell silent as the human military commander prepared to address the council for the first time. "Honored delegates," Harrison began, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of service. 72 hours ago, you demanded that humanity reduce its military forces and cease expansion activities. Instead, I authorized the elimination of a terrorist threat that your collective governments have been unable to address for over a year. Ambassador Kethavar's wings fluttered with barely controlled rage. "Admiral, you conducted unauthorized military operations in Sovereign Council space. This is an act of aggression that cannot be tolerated." Harrison's expression didn't change. "Ambassador, I conducted defensive operations in human space against pirates and slavers who were attacking civilian settlements. If protecting innocent lives is what you call aggression, then perhaps we need to discuss your definition of the word." The truth of the matter was uncomfortable for many council members. The Void Syndicate had been growing bolder for months, but the established powers had been unable to coordinate an effective response. Each species wanted to protect their own territories first, and the Byzantine politics of the council made swift military action nearly impossible. Elder Nostram studied the tactical reports with the analytical mind that had guided his species for millennia. "Admiral Harrison, your forces achieved in 6 hours what our combined fleets have been unable to accomplish in 12 months. How do you explain this disparity?" "Simple, Elder. We trained for it." Harrison gestured to a display showing Marine training facilities across human space. "Every Marine is prepared for exactly this kind of operation. We don't debate, we don't form committees, and we don't wait for perfect consensus. When civilians are in danger, Marines act." What Harrison didn't mention was the deeper philosophy behind Marine training. Humans had learned through centuries of conflict that the best way to prevent war was to be so thoroughly prepared for it that potential enemies chose not to fight. The sight of Marines in action had sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. The syndicates surviving elements were already abandoning their territorial claims and fleeing to the galaxy's outer rimmed quartz sevens. Crystalline form pulsed with different colors as the collective processed the implications. "Admiral, your rapid deployment capabilities suggest a level of military preparation that far exceeds defensive needs. How do we know these forces won't be used for conquest?" Colonel Martinez stepped forward from her position in the gallery. "Because conquest has never been our objective. If it were, we would have started with council worlds instead of pirate bases." The statement sent a chill through the chamber. The implied threat was subtle but clear. If humanity had wanted to expand through military force, they possessed the capability to do so. The fact that they had chosen to target criminals instead of legitimate governments spoke to their actual intentions. Bexthol's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed threat assessments. The humans eliminated 17 major syndicate installations in a single coordinated strike. Their logistics capabilities alone suggest they could project force anywhere in council space. "That's the point," Harrison replied. "But we don't. We could have established military bases on any of the worlds we just liberated. Instead, we're handing them back to local authorities and withdrawing our forces. The only permanent presence we're maintaining is what's necessary to prevent the syndicate from returning." This was the aspect of human military doctrine that the Council struggled to understand. Human forces were designed for rapid deployment and rapid withdrawal, leaving behind only the minimal presence necessary to maintain security. Unlike conquest-oriented military doctrines, the Marine Corps was built around the concept of overwhelming force applied precisely where needed, then pulling back to allow civilian authorities to take control. Governor Vasquez's report from Minerva Prime supported Harrison's claims. "Council delegates, I can confirm that Marine forces have already begun withdrawing from liberated territories. They've transferred captured syndicate equipment to local defense forces and provided training to ensure these areas can defend themselves. This is not the behavior of a conquering army." Elder Nostram's forearms moved in a gesture that conveyed deep thought among his people. Admiral, your forces have demonstrated capabilities that challenge our understanding of military efficiency, but they have also demonstrated restraint that challenges our assumptions about human intentions. The real revelation was beginning to dawn on the more perceptive council members. Humanity's military buildup wasn't preparation for conquest. It was preparation for exactly what had just happened. The rapid response capabilities, the extensive training, the advanced logistics networks, all of it was designed to deal with threats that the Council's traditional diplomatic approach couldn't handle. Harrison sensed the shift in the Chamber's mood and pressed his advantage. Delegates, the galaxy is not as safe as your protocols assume. The Syndicate was just one threat among many. There are hostile alien species beyond our current borders, rogue AI remnants from the machine wars, and corporate entities that have grown beyond government control. The Marine Corps exists to handle these threats so that peaceful species can continue their work without fear. The mention of threats beyond Council space hit particularly hard. Each species had their own intelligence about dangers lurking in unexplored regions, but the Council's bureaucratic nature made it nearly impossible to address them proactively. The idea that humans were volunteering to serve as the galaxy's rapid response force was both attractive and terrifying. Captain Torres transmitted additional tactical data to the Council's displays. Delegates, our intelligence indicates that the Syndicate attack on Kepler sector was just the beginning. They had plans for similar operations against Zephyrian commercial routes, crystalline collective mining operations, and even some of the ancient Dominion's outer settlements. The forces you wanted us to disband just prevented a galaxy-wide criminal uprising. The implications were staggering. The Council's demand for human military reduction would have left the galaxy vulnerable to exactly the kind of coordinated criminal activity that their own forces couldn't counter effectively. The Marines hadn't just defended human territory, they had inadvertently protected the entire galactic community. Ambassador Kethvar found himself in the uncomfortable position of having to acknowledge that the humans had just prevented attacks on his own people. Admiral, even if we accept that your actions were defensive in nature, your military capabilities represent a fundamental shift in galactic power balance. How do we proceed from here? Harrison's smile was grim but satisfied. Ambassador, that depends entirely on whether the Council wants humanity as an ally or an adversary. We've just demonstrated what we can accomplish when we work independently. Imagine what we could achieve working together. The aftermath of Operation Proud Ground sent ripples throughout the galaxy that extended far beyond the Council chambers. In secure communication networks across dozens of worlds, intelligence agencies scrambled to reassess their understanding of human military capabilities. What they discovered changed everything. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Ethros, Military Intelligence Director Shalvek pored over classified reports with growing unease. The humans had deployed forces across 17 different star systems simultaneously, coordinated their attacks with split-second timing, and achieved total victory against an enemy that had stymied Zephyrian forces for months. The implications were staggering. The logistics alone should have been impossible, Shalovek muttered to his aide, a younger Zephyrian whose wings trembled with nervous energy. Moving that many troops, that much equipment across such distances without detection? Our best analysts said it would take at least 6 months to plan such an operation. The aide consulted his datapad, with movements that betrayed his anxiety. Sir, according to intercepted human communications, they planned and executed the entire operation in 48 hours. Their rapid deployment doctrine appears to be based on pre-positioned assets and modular force structures that can be reconfigured for any mission profile. What the Zephyrians were discovering was a military philosophy that had evolved from humanity's unique history. Unlike species that had developed spacefaring capabilities gradually, humans had reached the stars while still carrying the lessons of global warfare. Their military doctrine assumed that threats could emerge anywhere at any time, requiring immediate response with whatever forces were available. Meanwhile, in the crystal caves of the collective homeworld, Quartz 7 interfaced directly with the vast computational matrix that served as their species' collective consciousness. The data streams flowing through crystalline networks painted a picture that challenged every assumption about military efficiency. Analysis indicates human force multiplication factors exceed theoretical maximums, the entity reported to its peers. Individual Marine units demonstrate combat effectiveness equivalent to formations 5 times their size. Recommend immediate reassessment of threat evaluation protocols. The collective's analysis had identified something that even human military planners didn't fully appreciate: the exponential force multiplication achieved through their integration of technology, training, and tactical doctrine. A single Marine could coordinate with orbital support, electronic warfare systems, and multiple friendly units while simultaneously processing real-time intelligence from dozens of sources. It was less like individual soldiers fighting and more like distributed nodes of a single vast organism. Back on Earth, Admiral Harrison convened his senior staff to analyze the broader implications of their demonstration. The successful operation had achieved its immediate objective of protecting human interests, but it had also revealed capabilities that would reshape galactic politics for decades to come. Intelligence. Reports indicate that at least 6 major powers are conducting emergency military assessments, reported General Chen, spreading holographic displays across the conference table. The Hive worlds have recalled 3 of their exploration fleets to reinforce core territories, and the ancient Dominion has activated reserve forces for the first time in over a century. Colonel Martinez, still stationed at the Council facility, appeared via secure hologram. "Sir, the Council is in chaos. Half the delegations are demanding immediate military cooperation agreements with Earth, while the other half are discussing preemptive action against human expansion. Nobody seems to know how to process what just happened." Harrison studied the intelligence reports with the analytical mind that had made him one of humanity's premier military strategists. "What's our assessment of actual threats? Are we looking at potential hostile action from Council members?" "Unlikely in the short term," General Chen replied. "Most species lack the rapid deployment capabilities necessary for effective action against our positions. However, if they coordinate their efforts and commit to a long-term military buildup, we could face significant challenges." The truth was that humanity's military advantages were partially circumstantial. Their rapid deployment capabilities were unmatched, their individual unit effectiveness was superior, and their logistical networks were more flexible than anything the galaxy had seen. However, in a prolonged conflict against multiple opponents with superior numbers and established industrial bases, the outcome would be far from certain. Captain Torres highlighted tactical displays showing human force distributions across the sector. "Sir, we need to consider that our demonstration may have been too effective. If the Council views us as an existential threat, they might overcome their political differences long enough to coordinate against us." This was the delicate balance that Harrison had to navigate. The operation had successfully protected human interests and demonstrated that threats against Earth would be met with overwhelming force. However, it had also potentially painted humanity as a threat that other species might unite against. On the ancient Dominion world of Kasthara, Elder Nostram convened an emergency session of the Strategic Council, a body that hadn't met in over 2,000 years. The assembled beings represented the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy's oldest spacefaring civilization, and their concern was palpable. "The humans have demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our own in several critical areas," Elder Nostram began, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "However, their actions suggest strategic thinking that focuses on protection rather than expansion. We must decide whether they represent an opportunity or a threat." Elder Yithmora, whose subspecies specialized in military analysis, projected tactical assessments into the chamber's holographic displays. Their force structure appears designed for rapid intervention rather than territorial control. They deploy overwhelming force to eliminate threats, then withdraw to minimal presence levels. This suggests defensive rather than offensive strategic goals. The ancient Dominion's analysis was reaching the same conclusion that other major powers were. Discovering humanity's military doctrine was fundamentally different from anything the galaxy had seen before. Rather than building forces for conquest or territorial control, humans had created a military designed to eliminate threats quickly and decisively, then step back to allow diplomatic solutions to take hold. Back in the Council chambers, emergency sessions continued around the clock as delegates struggled to formulate a response to humanity's demonstration. The traditional power structures that had maintained galactic stability for millennia were suddenly called into question by a species that could project force more effectively than civilizations with thousands of years of spacefaring experience. Ambassador Kathavar found himself in the unusual position of arguing for cooperation with the same species he had sought to constrain just days earlier. Delegates, we can view the human military capabilities as a threat to be contained, or as an asset to be utilized. The Syndicate operation demonstrated that they can accomplish objectives that our combined forces could not achieve. Vex Thul's compound eyes focused on intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans have neutralized criminal elements that have plagued shipping in 17 systems. Piracy rates in those areas have dropped to 0. If we oppose them, who will handle the next Syndicate-level threat? This was the strategic dilemma that the Council faced. Humanity had just demonstrated that they could provide security services that no other species could match. The choice was between accepting human military superiority as a stabilizing force or attempting to constrain it and dealing with the consequences of an unprotected galaxy. Elder Nostram's transmission reached the Council chamber with a weight that silenced all other discussion. Delegates, the Ancient Dominion formally proposes Resolution 448, recognition of human rapid response mandate. We suggest that rather than constraining human military capabilities, we should formalize their role as the galaxy's emergency response force. The proposal sent shockwaves through the Council. Instead of demanding human military reduction, the galaxy's oldest and most respected civilization was suggesting that humanity be given official authority to respond to threats throughout Council space. It was a complete reversal of the position the Council had held just days earlier. The debate over Resolution 448 raged for 6 days straight, with delegates arguing through multiple sleep cycles as the implications of formalizing human military authority rippled through galactic politics. What had started as an attempt to limit human expansion had evolved into a fundamental restructuring of how the galaxy approached security and defense. Admiral Harrison observed the proceedings from Earth, monitoring multiple communication streams while his staff analyzed the shifting political landscape. The transformation in Council attitudes was remarkable, but it also presented new challenges that required careful navigation. "Sir, we're seeing some interesting alliance formations," reported Colonel Martinez via secure transmission. "The Free Traders Union is pushing hard for immediate approval. They've lost more ships to piracy than any other organization and see us as their salvation. The Crystalline Collective is supporting the resolution, but requesting oversight provisions. The Hive worlds are split. Some want our protection, others fear our capabilities." The political maneuvering was complex, but the underlying current was clear. Humanity had demonstrated capabilities that the galaxy needed, but many species remained uncomfortable with the implications of acknowledging human military superiority. The challenge was finding a framework that provided security while maintaining the dignity of older civilizations. General Chen spread tactical assessments across the conference table in Harrison's office. "Admiral, if we accept this mandate, we're talking about potential responsibility for security across over 300 star systems. Our current force structure could handle it, but we'd need significant expansion of support infrastructure. More importantly," Captain Torres added, "we'd be painting an even bigger target on ourselves. Every hostile force in the galaxy would view Earth as the primary threat to their operations. We'd need to be prepared for coordinated attacks by groups we haven't even identified yet." Harrison studied the star maps showing current marine deployments and potential threat areas. The scope of responsibility being offered was enormous, but it also represented an opportunity to shape galactic security in ways that aligned with human values. The question was whether Earth was ready for that level of exposure and responsibility. On the Council station, emergency intelligence briefings revealed the broader context that was driving the political discussions. The Void Syndicate had been just one of several criminal organizations operating throughout the galaxy, and their rapid elimination had created power vacuums that other hostile groups were moving to fill. Quartz 7 transmitted data streams directly to the Council's collective databases. Analysis indicates 17 distinct criminal organizations have increased activity levels following Syndicate elimination. Probability of coordinated action against human positions, 67% and rising. The data painted a clear picture. Humanity's demonstration of military superiority had made them a target for every criminal, terrorist and hostile organization in the galaxy. If the Council voted to formalize human authority, they would essentially be asking Earth to accept responsibility for fighting enemies that the combined forces of 12 major civilizations had been unable to handle. Elder Nostram addressed the Council with the gravity that came from having witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Delegates, we face a choice that will define the galaxy for centuries to come. We can acknowledge that the humans possess capabilities that we lack and work with them to enhance galactic security. Or we can allow pride and fear to drive us toward a confrontation that serves no one's interests. The ancient Dominion's support carried enormous weight in Council politics. As the galaxy's oldest spacefaring civilization, their endorsement of human capabilities validated what many species had been reluctant to admit. If beings who had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years acknowledged human superiority in military affairs, it became much harder for other species to maintain their objections. Ambassador Kethavar found himself in the unexpected position of defending humanity's military expansion. Delegates, 3 days ago I stood in this chamber arguing for constraints on human military activities. The events in the Kepler sector have demonstrated that I was wrong. The humans have capabilities that we need, and opposing them benefits no one except our enemies. The transformation in Kethavar's position reflected a broader shift in galactic thinking. The Syndicate operation had forced many species to confront the limitations of their own military forces. Diplomatic solutions were effective for political disputes, but they were useless against pirates, slavers, and terrorists who had no interest in negotiation. Vexthal's analysis carried particular weight because the Hive worlds had traditionally maintained some of the galaxy's most effective military forces. The humans demonstrated tactical coordination that exceeds our own capabilities by orders of magnitude. Each individual unit functioned as part of a larger organism while maintaining independent decision-making authority. This represents a fundamental advancement in military science. What Vexthal was describing reflected humanity's unique approach to warfare. Unlike hive mind species that achieved coordination through shared consciousness, or individualistic species that relied on strict hierarchical command structures, humans had developed a middle path that combined independent thinking with seamless coordination. Marines could adapt to changing circumstances without waiting for orders while still functioning as part of a unified force. The debate's turning point came when intelligence reports revealed the scope of threats that the Council had been unable to address. Beyond the criminal organizations, long-range sensors had detected signs of hostile alien activity in unexplored regions. Rogue artificial intelligence systems were showing increased activity levels, and several corporate entities had grown beyond government control. Colonel Martinez transmitted the classified briefing to Earth while simultaneously presenting a sanitized version to the Council. Admiral, the threats we're facing are more extensive than anyone realized. The Council has been dealing with symptoms while ignoring the underlying disease. They need us not just for rapid response, but for the kind of proactive threat assessment that prevents problems from becoming crises. Harrison reviewed the intelligence data with growing concern. The Syndicate operation had been successful beyond expectations, but it had also revealed the tip of an iceberg that extended far deeper than anyone had suspected. The galaxy was facing threats that required exactly the kind of military capabilities that humanity had developed. Colonel, what's your assessment of Council willingness to provide the resources necessary for an expanded mandate? If we're going to take responsibility for galactic security, we'll need access to intelligence networks, logistics support, and legal authority that extends beyond human space. Mixed reactions, sir. The Free Traders Union and several smaller species are offering full cooperation. The major powers are more cautious, but they're beginning to understand that this isn't about human expansion, it's about survival. Even Ambassador Kethavar is arguing for expanded intelligence sharing. The political calculations were becoming clearer. Humanity's military demonstration had forced the galaxy to confront threats that it had been ignoring or handling inadequately. The choice was no longer between constraining human expansion or allowing it. The choice was between working with humanity to address existential threats or facing those threats alone. Elder Nostram's final argument carried the weight of 10 millennia of spacefaring experience. Delegates, civilizations rise and fall based on their ability to adapt to changing circumstances. The humans represent a new paradigm in military effectiveness. We can embrace this change and benefit from it, or we can resist it and face the consequences of our pride. As the vote approached, it became clear that Resolution 448 would pass, but the margin and specific provisions would determine how the new security framework actually functioned. The galaxy was about to fundamentally alter its approach to defense and security, with humanity at the center of the new paradigm. The final vote on Resolution 448 took place amid an atmosphere of tension and anticipation that permeated every level of the council station. Representatives who had spent days arguing over provisions and amendments now faced a decision that would reshape galactic civilization for generations to come. Admiral Harrison watched the proceedings from his command center on Earth, surrounded by displays showing marine positions across human space, intelligence reports from dozens of systems, and real-time analysis of political developments throughout the galaxy. The weight of potential responsibility was enormous. If the resolution passed, humanity would become the galaxy's first line of defense against threats that most civilizations preferred to ignore. Final vote commencing. Colonel Martinez reported from her position in the council chamber. The Free Traders Union, Crystalline Collective, and Ancient Dominion have confirmed their support. The Hive Worlds and two smaller federations are voting in favor with reservations. Ambassador Kethvar is casting the Zephyrian Empire's vote in favor, which surprised everyone, including his own delegation. The transformation in galactic politics was remarkable. Species that had opposed human expansion just weeks earlier were now arguing for formalized human authority over security matters. The syndicate operation had forced a fundamental reassessment of military effectiveness and the nature of galactic threats. Elder Nositram cast the Ancient Dominion's vote with ceremonial gravity. The Ancient Dominion votes in favor of Resolution 448. We have observed the rise of countless civilizations over 10 millennia. The humans represent something new, a species that combines technological advancement with strategic wisdom and tactical excellence. They have earned the right to lead galactic security efforts. The psychological impact of the Ancient Dominion's endorsement could not be overstated. When the galaxy's oldest civilization declared that humans had achieved something unprecedented, it validated what many species had been reluctant to acknowledge. Humanity hadn't just demonstrated military superiority, they had shown a fundamentally different approach to warfare and security that other civilizations couldn't match. Court 7's crystalline form pulsed with complex patterns as the collective cast their vote. The Crystalline Collective supports Resolution 448 with provisions for oversight and resource allocation. Analysis indicates human military effectiveness correlates with reduced casualty rates and faster conflict resolution compared to traditional approaches. The Collective's analysis had revealed something that even human commanders found surprising. Marine operations resulted in significantly lower overall casualties, including enemy casualties, than conventional military approaches used by other species. The combination of overwhelming force applied precisely and the swift resolution of conflicts actually reduced total violence rather than increasing it. As the votes were tallied, the margin of approval became clear. 10 of 12 council members voted in favor, with only the Void Merchants and the Stellar Confederacy abstaining due to internal political considerations. Resolution 448 had passed with overwhelming support. The provisions of the resolution were comprehensive and unprecedented. Humanity was granted authority to respond to threats anywhere in council space, access to combined intelligence networks, legal jurisdiction over criminal organizations operating across multiple systems, and resource allocation agreements that would support expanded marine operations. Admiral Harrison addressed the council directly as the resolution was formally adopted. Delegates, the United States Marine Corps accepts the responsibility you have entrusted to us. We will defend innocent lives, protect peaceful commerce, and eliminate threats to galactic stability wherever they emerge. This is not a mandate we sought, but it is one we will execute with the same commitment that has defined Marine service throughout human history. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the beginning of a new era in interstellar relations. For the first time since the establishment of the Galactic Council, a single species had been granted authority, to act as the primary security force for the entire galactic community. General Chen coordinated the immediate implementation of expanded operations from Marine Corps headquarters. All commands are to prepare for extended deployment schedules. Intelligence indicates at least 30 criminal organizations are planning coordinated action against human positions within the next month. Additionally, we have confirmed reports of hostile alien activity in the Outer Rim territories. The challenge facing the Marines was unprecedented in scale and complexity. Traditional military doctrine assumed clearly defined enemies operating within established parameters. The new mandate required them to simultaneously combat criminal organizations, hostile alien species, rogue artificial intelligences, and corporate entities that operated across multiple jurisdictions. Captain Torres coordinated intelligence sharing agreements with council member species, revealing the scope of threats that had been developing while political attention focused on human expansion. Sir, the intelligence we're receiving is sobering. There are organized hostile forces operating in at least 6 different regions that the Council has been unable to address effectively. Some of these groups have military capabilities that rival major government forces. The broader picture was emerging of a galaxy where traditional diplomatic and military approaches had proven inadequate to address evolving threats. Criminal organizations had grown into quasi-governmental entities. Hostile alien species had been probing civilized space for weaknesses, and technological developments had created new categories of threats that existing institutions couldn't handle. 3 months after the resolution's passage, the results of expanded marine operations were becoming apparent throughout the galaxy. Piracy rates had dropped to historic lows in 17 star systems. 3 major criminal organizations had been dismantled through coordinated operations across multiple sectors. 2 hostile alien incursions had been repelled before they could establish footholds in civilized space. Colonel Martinez submitted her report from the field, where she was coordinating anti-piracy operations in the Vega sector. Admiral, local government response has been overwhelmingly positive. The Vegan Confederation reports that commerce in their system has increased by 40% since we eliminated the Crimson Fleet base. They're requesting permanent marine presence to prevent future criminal infiltration. The economic benefits of enhanced security were substantial. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to piracy were reopening. Colonial expansion was accelerating as settlers gained confidence in marine protection. Scientific expeditions were venturing into previously dangerous regions under marine escort. Elder Nostram transmitted a formal assessment to Admiral Harrison on behalf of the ancient Dominion. Admiral, your forces have achieved in 3 months what our combined civilizations were unable to accomplish in 3 years. The transformation in galactic security has exceeded our most optimistic projections. The success of the expanded mandate was evident in statistics that told the story of a safer galaxy. Criminal activity had decreased by 70% in areas under marine protection. Response times to distress calls had improved from days to hours. Most significantly, the mere knowledge that Marines could respond rapidly to any threat had deterred many potential hostile actions before they began. However, success brought new challenges. As Marine effectiveness became widely known, hostile forces began adapting their tactics and seeking ways to challenge human superiority. Intelligence reports indicated that several criminal organizations were attempting to acquire advanced weaponry specifically designed to counter Marine tactics. Admiral Harrison addressed his senior staff as they planned for the challenges ahead. We've proven that the Marines can handle any threat the galaxy has faced so far, but our success has made us a target for every hostile force in known space. The next phase will test not just our military capabilities, but our ability to maintain galactic security while facing coordinated opposition from enemies we haven't even identified yet. The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from a newcomer facing political constraints to the galaxy's acknowledged military leader, entrusted with responsibilities that extended far beyond human space. The Galactic Council had learned that underestimating the Marines was a mistake that threatened the security of the entire galaxy. As Admiral Harrison looked out at the sprawling training facilities where new Marine units prepared for deployment across dozens of worlds, he reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. The Council had sought to limit human expansion through political pressure, never imagining that their attempt at constraint would lead to humanity being entrusted with the security of galactic civilization itself. The Marines had proven themselves in the crucible of interstellar conflict, demonstrating that human military doctrine represented a fundamental advancement in the science of warfare. Now they faced the ultimate test, maintaining peace and security across a galaxy that had learned to rely on their protection while facing enemies that were determined to prove that even Marines could be defeated.